on use LinkedIn again.
Why? Why is that?
Because we haven't reset it.
That's not it.
I didn't do it. Did you?
Barging bastage.
Definitely thought you said it was.
No, I did not.
Twitter's live.
Okay. How are we doing on Facebook?
Facebook is live.
Right. Well, that's good enough with checkers. All right. So we're streaming live to Ustream, Twitter and Facebook, and probably not LinkedIn. We have to look at resetting that again. Steve, when you're ready, just sit up so I don't have you at the bottom of the screen, and then
Yeah,
and then we'll go.
just trying
I'll
to.
give you the countdown. Hi, everybody. And Keith, congratulations again for your college graduate.
Super funny. He got his first job and came back shocked that he has to work more than 9 to 5.
What a way to make a living.
Welcome to the world of tech, right?
He has no clue. It's so funny to watch, and he's really pissed off about it.
Kids these days.
Or expect to what?
Okay, can you do the mute is off, please?
Okay. Mute is off. And we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, and
Hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. Welcome to from Palo Alto, California, Keith Tier.
A pleasure to be with you all on this wonderful Friday. And because we're going at 11, my gardeners already came and went, so there's no noise in the background.
From the Duchy of Massachusetts is what's your name again? Dennis.
It's Duke Dennis or Dennis Duke.
And what do you have to say for yourself in a lower third format?
Oh, in a lower third kind of way. Well, it just started raining coming out of nowhere. We're dealing with smoke from Canada's wildfires, and it's caused the weather to be a little strange and extreme. We've had some very red skies recently.
From
Smoky.
London, England is Frank Radis.
Hello, gang. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll try and stretch this out a little bit on this historic day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And from the shadows of Mount Hood, is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, good. Well, it's maybe Michael Markman. 3M.
I'm not close enough to Mount Hood to get their shadow. I don't think you get any mountain shadows here, but we've had a long spell of no rain, which is unusual, and then it rained overnight. So I feel like I'm back in the Seattle area.
We're waiting on Brent Leary, so we can use that as a.
Brent, who reminds me that he told you he was gonna be a little bit late.
No, he
So-
said he was hopeful, then he said he'd be a little bit late.
Well,
then
he
he
said,
said, okay. There have been many
Iterations.
iterations of my failure to be
well, we had a scheduling
Effective.
snafu a little bit.
no, we didn't. It was just me.
It was
It's just me screwing up. Yeah.
Screw up.
Yeah. So
You're just out of practice, Steve. You know, this whole clock and calendar thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I quit and I'm fired, and that's the way it goes.
Well, we'll
I
announce
see.
Brent when he gets here, and I'm Tina Chase Gillmor. I'll announce myself. All right. Well, wow, slow week, huh?
It
So
was.
they're basically two stories that are competing for screen time, as they say. One of them is
Oh, you have
this one, which is the Apple event, and I'm looking forward to getting to that. But as usual, crowding everything out is the former resident of the White House, now indicted by, at the last count I heard just before we started this, 28
38,
38 indictments.
49 pages.
So evidently
Almost one indictment per page.
the Department of Justice says we ain't kidding.
Wow.
Okay, there you go, Frank. You wanted to start the show a few minutes ago. Start it now.
Well, it's not very substantive what I was saying. It was about how I learned here in the UK and at what time it happened. For me, it was 1 o'clock in the morning. So I guess that would have been 8 o'clock at night on the East Coast, which I think was somewhere within like half an hour or so of the time that Trump, beat everybody out by going on his Truth Social with a video and saying he'd been indicted, which I thought was a pretty smart move on his part, but to go out and do that first. But for me, it was reminiscent of when big stories broke at when I was at NBC, and we would be ready with. In this case, I would have probably had an obit like promo already in the can. Trump indicted. I would have probably also had one that said Trump not indicted, and kept them in two very different places so nobody could make a mistake and pull the wrong one out and put it on the air right away.
So one would be in your desk and the other would be in the bathroom.
Or the storage room.
Either way, I mean, as long as the person that was in the office and somebody would be in the office on standby, as long as they knew which stall in the bathroom to go to in case it was the other way. But this whole thing makes me think, after seeing some of the indictment, which I was having problems looking at on my phone, if Trump and his people really know how serious the Department of Justice is in this. I mean, it was astounding. That's it. That's it for me, starting it off. There, take it.
Michael?
Well, both the big stories this week are sort of just opening chapters of stories that are just going to continue for months and months and years. People are very eager to jump to the end and figure out how they end. But definitely both of them are a watershed milestone. I'm kind of, I wouldn't say shocked, but I am disappointed at how quickly the MAGA chorus in Congress jumped to Trump's side to dismiss this as a political stunt and a political attempt to sideline Biden's rival.
Absolutely, yeah.
Without even waiting to find out what Jack Smith had in mind.
Well,
he-
that's because they had it all in a can in the right stall in the bathroom.
That's correct. So, I think that it's a failure, another failure for ChatGPT, that they weren't prepared with at least several explanations for why they're hiding behind not really knowing what's going on.
I mean, even Mitch McConnell, who has lately seemed like he was sort of pulling away from Trumpism, jumped on that bandwagon too, which I thought, oh my gosh, this is insanity. It's the insanity clause.
I think that Senator Romney was the first and maybe the only one who actually said something cogent and realistic about the event.
What did he say?
He said it was serious. He said it was a serious indictment. I don't have his statement. I don't have it in hand, but I could probably use the internet to find it if you want it.
I could support you on that.
One of the things that I'm sure you saw there, it just sort of like jumped out at me, was that he had actually shown it to, or twice, I think, to people who didn't have security clearances. So that's that in and of itself is a huge problem for him.
On the indictment?
Yeah, it's in the indictment that he actually showed the certain documents that were related to national security and war planning and maps and things like that. He'd actually shown those things to people who didn't. It's what it sounded like it said. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but
I believe you are 100% right.
I will say this, that's pretty clear. The team of lawyers working for Jack Smith is a lot sharper than the team of lawyers working for Donald Trump. They clearly,
That's what happens when you pay people.
I mean, they clearly did their homework in finding specific laws and specific evidence to charge. And Trump's team is just all smokescreen.
And that guy Nauta, I think is how his name is pronounced, was also indicted today, has been either referred to as a Trump aide or as a handyman who moved some boxes. I have no idea what his job is, but once again, not unlike Chris Licht, Trump has brought someone else down.
Okay, so what,
It's a floor wax and a dessert topping.
Oh my
Right.
God.
so Chris Licht, could you please explain for those who
Ah,
don't care?
So, well, it's funny. You sound like my wife, who, as I was jumping up and down, going, "Oh my God, Chris Licht was fired." She goes, "Who gives a shit?" And I said, "Dear, I do." She says, "I don't care. We're going to watch EastEnders." But anyway, I thought there's Keith, I
There's
knew you'd
still-
smile. So
Still
Chris
no
Licht,
explanation.
the replacement CEO for Jeff Zucker at CNN was let go after a whole bunch of missteps. A really terrible article in the Atlantic that just laid out. God, I don't know how his public relations people let him do that. Laid out who he was, laid it bare. You really got an understanding of what kind of person he was. It didn't really, in the article, as I recall, didn't really give you too much of an understanding of what John Malone and David Zaslav did in the background. But my sense is that David Zaslav, who took the blame, in fact, Chris Licht took the fall, and Chris Licht is out now. I think it's unfortunate. I like Chris Licht, but I don't think he was the right guy for that job. I actually think that the woman that is the taken over there, really, it could be the right person for that job. Her name is Amy Entelis, and I worked with her at ABC News many years ago. She was the woman who was in charge of designing what CNN did with documentaries. So, Navalny and RBG, some of the really, really good award-winning documentaries were on CNN because of her. And she knows how to hire people, and she knows how to develop talent, and she knows how to run a company, and she knows how to develop content. So Chris is out, and a big part of it was the noise that was made by the employees of the company over the town hall with Donald Trump that we talked about last week. So it's my reaction at that point was, geez, Donald Trump brought someone else down, and in to a certain extent, I think he did help to bring Chris Licht down.
Well,
That's that.
I welcome Brent Leary.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And can we have
La
some
La Land.
third for our reading pleasure?
We're celebrating Prince's birthday, 65th birthday this week.
oh,
Shout out to Frank for sending me that great article, Frank.
I'm always thinking about you when it comes to Prince.
Yes, when it comes to
I was gonna see your. Oh, okay. Tap,
I
tap.
think a couple of
tap,
other
tap.
things that we might say about Chris Licht leaving CNN. Frank said, how did those PR people let him do that article? The PR people were let go as well.
Yeah.
And I think this story has two layers. One is what Chris Licht's mission was from Malone and Zaslav, and the other is how he executed it. Clearly, they fired him because he executed it so badly, and especially at the end because of the firestorm of the Trump town hall, and then the Tim Alberta article in the Atlantic. It made everything look bad. But the article did give us, without any details, a good sense of what his mission was, what he was asked to do. Malone wanted to move the network to the right and try and find some mythical center for TV news. And I don't think there is a mythical center for cable news anymore.
There's there's no real center for cable news anymore.
I mean, in the olden days, which most of us can remember, there were 3 broadcast networks and they had a nightly news show, and that was it. And it had to be centrist by default, because that's the only thing you could watch. You could only watch ABC, NBC, or CBS if you wanted news. Then along came CNN, and they had the only news outlet on cable. And so they were pretty centrist. But then once it started to fracture, with Fox News going to the right and MSNBC going to the left, the centrist audience kind of evaporated. People wanted to find their own team and watch the news through that specific lens. So the mission of Chris Licht was to find the mythical center. I don't know if his successor is going to be able to find that any better than he did.
No, I totally agree with you. Not only do I not think that they will find a mythical center or even a realistic center, I think the only thing that CNN can do at this time, at this point in history, is to change the game somehow, to completely change the game. I threw out this idea the other day that they could split into 2 channels and have a left CNN and a right CNN, and occasionally have a crossover CNN. But and some people thought that was an interesting concept, and other people, because they did, of course, have HLN and CNN, so they had 2 separate channels. But the point is, cable news in and of itself is deteriorating, like linear TV is deteriorating, and it's all moving into this streaming world. And so how do you make that work? Well, I think that the concept of having multiple channels for your network in the stream is a concept that could work.
I think it's important to not put the cart before the horse in analyzing what's going on. It feels to me as if the fragmentation of media into warring camps is representative of the failure of politics. So if you go back, every election, seems to be, whether they succeed or fail, it's kind of against the incumbent, because most normal people are very unhappy with politicians. And so you've got this highly depoliticized population of roughly 200 million people. And what's left is a highly politicized minority on the left and the right, numbered in the single-digit millions, who watch cable news based on their taste, and they're both kind of for their own cause. Normal people don't watch news because it's a total turnoff for them.
There's another dimension,
so I think,
Keith, which has to do with demographics. The news audience is an older audience, and it's aging out. Kids don't get their news from the news. Wherever they get it, it's not from the news. They're getting it from TikTok. They're getting it from social media. So the cable news networks are fighting a losing battle against a tide of an audience that's fleeing and aging out and dying.
And the social,
there's another aspect to it also, Michael, and that is the fact that the subscriptions that really are the bread and butter of the cable news channels, and that is to say that 3 million people watching a hit show is like something you could do by yelling out the window of 30 Rock. In reality, 100 million people in the early days of cable would be how many subscriptions they had and people were paying for, which is now down into the 70 million number. So that's a huge loss, and that number is continuing to go down. So there's the, aside from the fact that there is this bifurcation, this diminution of viewers, there are also people who just aren't going to pay for it anymore, and that's going to be another problem for the cable channels, which have in fact also been firing people. So if you take a look at CNN, when Licht came in, I think he was responsible for firing thousands of individuals. And I know for a fact that there are people working on shows there who are working 3 jobs now. The idea of being a specialist anymore is already gone. But the fact that, you've got a staff of maybe 8 people or 10 people working on a show that for example, the 10 o'clock show on CNN, that's already lost 3 senior people in the last month. These kinds of things are hard to get back.
But if you go back to Michael's point is, those are scraps of the table, but all the networks are eating scraps of the table. If you look at the social media version of news, it's mainly not serious. It's making fun of politicians. It's using, chat GPT or various video creation things to create fakes. Why? Because the population's belief in the seriousness of politicians is at an all-time low. All politicians, by the way. I mean, my kids go on about how bad it would be. They kind of side with him, but they think Biden really shouldn't stand because he's almost dead in their view. And so that idea that he's almost dead dominant. They don't have a clue what he stands for. They just know he's almost dead. So that view of politicians as being not really relevant to your life is the dominant thing.
And the other side of that coin is someone like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is just a caricature and a cartoon.
I don't see it the same way as you guys, apparently. I don't see this as an ageist discussion. I see it as, if you take a look at, and I think Brent probably has some insight into this, if you take a look at what's going on in the advertising world, so-called direct advertising, YouTube, Amazon, theoretically, in the wake of Apple's destruction of the third-party, tracking model, people are moving to a much more highly structured transaction attached advertising model. And that does not require, in fact, to some extent, obviates this kind of water cooler marketing that's going on in the linear world, which is why linear is fading. So there's a different economic model, and I would suggest, and I think Keith, you kind of validated part of what we've been talking about for a while, or at least I have, about work from anywhere. That that's really where the war is being fought. And
in some ways, that's a supplement to what Frank was saying. If they're losing subscription revenue, they're also losing ad revenue because the advertising model is flipping as well. So the economic sustainability of cable news is in jeopardy.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think the conventional wisdom is that the Twitter Spaces DeSantis Musk launch was a failure. I think the exact opposite. It was a success, much like his rocket launch of the SpaceX, which various mainstream media says basically went out of control and exploded. One network suggested that what I think actually did happen is that it went out of control, and then they pushed the explode button,
and showered debris over a great area.
Yeah, well, they had to make a,
So I
they
don't know
had
if
to
that's
make
a
a,
success. They might
they
have
had to make a
decided to do it.
choice about this in the business context of, what's moving ahead. Musk has not only restored his position as the world's richest man, but if you take a look at he may not like Biden for various reasons, but on the other hand, he's taking full advantage in terms of the way that they're constructing batteries and other things to get the benefit of the legislation that Biden has run through, and which parenthetically was salvaged and rescued by the debt limit legislation. So there's a lot going on here on the economic level, which I think obviates the old school kind of view of how journalists get paid.
Well, I think you're right. If you look at the fact that the ratings, which are what used to be what you attached your cost per thousand against, and were able to charge an advertiser for, that the ratings seem to be less and less important, and what's more important is targeting, and that you can target an audience that is more likely to buy a product. That the argument is that targeting is more valuable than just throwing the pasta against the side of the refrigerator and seeing what will stick, which is kind of how ratings worked.
Yeah, they may be in fact viewing advertising while they're buying the product.
Yeah. So that changes the whole business model.
But the other thing that changes the business model for targeting is that targeting is a layer that can be separated from programming, because you can target through the delivery mechanism, so that you and I can both watch the same program and see different ads.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would look at the business model for content as evolving rapidly to the point where news is a cost. The subscriptions are now being bundled into fewer and fewer bundles. Disney, NBC, Paramount Plus, Apple TV, Netflix. There's going to be about 7 of them. And the primary driver of subscriptions is going to be high quality content. News is a cost. The only thing that really drives subscriptions outside of that is sports. And it was interesting that Apple's launch this week focused on a 3D basketball game that was stunning in how it looked. I mean, it just changes the whole delivery of sports is transformed by that experience to me. And that suggests to me that sports and technology go together very closely. This week, Apple brought Lionel Messi to the Miami MLS soccer team and paid him out of Apple's sponsorship money. So Apple seems to be super focused on sports as a platform.
Your bandwidth seems to be intermittent. Is it Wi-Fi? Yeah, but it's represented by the audio.
So I think that we're looking at something that almost feels, Michael, and you might agree with this, that it feels like we're back to the future here. And that is that in the early days of news, it was the loss leader. You had to have it. You put it on. It gave you a certain gravitas, and it was part of the brand, but it wasn't something that made money. It wasn't until sometime in the late 70s when, believe it or not, Roone Arledge, who was the president of ABC Sports, decided that he could promote news the way he promoted sports, which had never happened before, and news started to generate money. And then a few years later, the 80s and the 90s, news becomes not a loss leader, but a profit center inside the companies. And I think it's starting to turn around the other way. Will these companies care to have news as a part of its brand? I don't know.
I
But it's,
I agree with that. I was thinking it, as a matter of fact, you got to say it first, but it was in my mind. And that goes back to the original model of broadcast as something that uses license spectrum. And a part of your requirement to have a broadcast license was a certain amount of public affairs programming. So it started almost as a requirement to have news. But when we're in a world where spectrum is not licensed from the government and governed by the FCC, then providers have a lot of options for the balance of programming that they choose to provide.
Yeah, RSS kind of made that happen.
Yeah.
Essentially by unbundling attachments and turning transmitters into what do they call technology which is dumb to a dumb technology.
It's also the fact that the laws were changed, which took away the need by the FCC to force the spectrum to be doled out to those companies that did those things like have news and public affairs. So that changed. Also, almost at the same time, the fairness doctrine went away. There were a lot of things that just went away that also changed the way things were perceived.
Well, they went away at the network level, at the national level, but they're still very much in place at the local TV level. And it seems
are they in place at the local TV level by virtue of some kind of law, or are they in place because the local TV stations still because the local stations as local TV have to apply for bandwidth and have to apply for a license?
Precisely. The local TV is still broadcasting, even though most of it goes out over cable. You can still get local TV broadcasts, and as a consequence, all of that traditional stuff is still in place, which suggests that maybe the burden of carrying the local or the public interest programming will go on to the backs of the local people increasingly, while the networks and the streaming services basically skate away from those kinds of commitments.
Well, last time I checked, and I haven't looked at it for a long time, local TV news was a profit center.
Yeah.
So your morning news segment and your evening news segment, the drive time news, or getting ready for work or getting home from work, were a profitable news segment for the local
Traffic, weather, and sports.
Well, yeah, but I mean, going back to the general generations thing, I don't know any young folk actually watching the local news. I mean, I'm not a young folk, and I don't even watch. The only way I watch, or reason I watch the local news, is like if there's a bad weather situation, something that I know is directly impacting me that I definitely need to know about. Other than that, or if there's like and this is really, kind of a bad negative mass murder situation. It's stuff that, unless it's completely out of the ordinary, I'm not watching local news.
If it bleeds,
you have
it leads.
little kids and you need to figure out how to send them to school, you're watching the local news, even if it's just your wife or your partner, whoever's responsible.
Aren't they going to the app? I don't know. I don't know if that's the case or not with younger folks.
So just a very interesting thing just happened here in my house. A certain individual was watching our YouTube TV, which is connected to our local station in New York. New York, as you know, like Boston, is being clouded in an orange haze from the Canadian fires. So what happened is it caused the local station to be on all day long, covering this, and the sky is still orange. We'll tell you more when we come back, making certain programs, The View, unavailable.
That's a good thing.
And this individual, who shall not be named in my house, was screaming at the TV and said, "You must go on Twitter right now and complain about this local station covering this news story right now." And I went, "Nope."
But this is, as you've said a lot, as you've said a lot, Frank, the good news here is that the unnamed person is not watching this network.
Mm-mm. No, not
So
at
you're-
all.
But-
She's
but that-
actually watching like probably Law and Order on Channel 4.
Oh, yeah, I'd be watching that, or the Criminal Intent. Anyway,
Yeah.
let me
yeah.
go back to one other thing. Who said Back to the Future? Somebody.
Me.
Yeah. I think Apple is kind of taking a play, or maybe the whole playbook from Fox. You remember? I mean, Fox wasn't really considered a real network until they got the NFL. And then once they got the NFL, they became a significant player, and that led them to be able to do a whole bunch of other stuff. And let's face it, there's not a lot of regular appointment viewing that people can count on other than live sports. And really in the States, it's traditionally football, NFL, college, whatever. It'll be interesting to see. Apple is taking a big swing, I guess, with this Messi thing. We'll see how that works out. Maybe they'll get the international reach. I don't know if it does anything for the US audience.
Yeah, but YouTube TV just bought the rights to the Sunday ticket.
Yeah, NFL ticket. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
because I mean, and you look at what's going on with college football, particularly with the SEC and the Big Ten. They have so much power because they've got premium content, which is their football teams beating each other up, and people love it. And now they're able to call the shots and kind of build their own little networks and not have to, deal with what the traditional networks were giving them. So this whole thing about appointment viewing and getting people's attention on a regular basis is driving a lot of this stuff. And there are only a few things that can actually do it regularly. And Apple,
I mean, live events in sports is the best example of it. Is a kind of thing that you have to watch while it's going on.
Yeah.
The value of watching last week's football game is a lot lower than watching this week's football game. It just has to be live. And there's certain other kinds of events that have that kind of draw, like election nights or the Academy Awards. But sports does it, week in and week out, not just a couple times a year.
that's the regular thing. That's why these companies are trying to figure out the best way to get it, because that drives subscriptions. When you can say, we've got you locked in for, NFL season is like 4 to 6 months, people are going to sign up for that, without really thinking.
Yeah, or more importantly, the bundles that those sports networks are attached to.
So if you talk about the user experience of watching sports, it's not the same today as it was 10 years ago. You're not watching one game. You can actually look at a screen like we look at this and see 7 images here in the screen, but see 25 images, all the college games, and be able to get notifications that say you need to be now watching the Oklahoma game because there's something going on. You can go to that game and you can bring it up and watch it and see all sorts of additional data along with it. And it makes the experience of watching sports entirely different than it has been in the past.
Take it a step further. Most people, they don't really, if it was up to them, they don't really just want to watch. They actually want to be as much a part of the thing as possible. So you're seeing, as games are playing, you're seeing YouTube channels with regular dudes, setting up like they're, a traditional NFL on CBS. So they're doing their commentary and their discussion while watching the game, and they're coming as close to copyright infringement because they can't show the game, but they're trying to show just enough as they talk about it to give them a bit of an edge. So
that's like Google Box or Goggle Box for sports.
yeah,
They do it in Sky, in the UK, in Sky on a Saturday afternoon. They're not allowed to watch soccer. Soccer can't be broadcast between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., which is when all the games are played. So they have this news studio with some famous ex-soccer players, and they go, "Oh, we scored a goal!" And and they commentate on every single game, but they can't show them.
nobody's. And then you got like the ESPN's they'll show the game like traditional Monday Night Football on one channel, and then on another channel they have the Mannings doing the Manning cast, which is they're watching the game and they're commenting in real time. They just signed up that Pat McAfee guy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him. He was a middle of the road player, but he got involved with this video podcasting really early as a an ex NFL guy, and he set up his own network. He's got like, I don't know, 3 million subscribers on YouTube, and because he was able to kind of leverage that with ESPN just signed him to like an $85 million deal where he's doing his own production. So they're paying him, and then he's using that money to create his own or run his own little broadcast organization.
Can you
in a way, this
imagine
is also
using
a
the new?
throwback to something very old in sports broadcasting. Do you know about what they used to call baseball recreations?
Yes.
Ronald Reagan got
Ronald
started
Reagan.
doing this.
Ronald Reagan.
He basically, they would just get a teletype description of every play, the pitches, the at bats, the hits, who fielded it, and they would recreate the game as though they were doing a live play-by-play with sound effects. So it sounded like you were at the game, but they weren't anywhere near the game, and they were only, ad-libbing based on a text stream.
Wasn't that radio?
Radio, yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
old-
imagine though, if you use the new Apple technology to bring up a multiple screens sort of in that.
Imagine you had $3,500.
Oh, that's another thing. But let's
let's
just
go
set
ahead.
that aside, because I'm doing a GoFundMe so I can actually go buy one. So you now have the ability to watch the game over here. And then on this side, you're watching the goggle box version of the game, and you choose between the two audios. I just think there's so many interesting ways to experience sports with that new device.
All right, so let's go around about the Apple announcements, and you've written the most about it, Michael. So you go last. Who thinks this is going to be super important, like the iPhone was and is?
How
I
much
didn't
was
see the
the
announcement. I
iPhone
didn't
again?
read about it, so I don't have any comment.
How much was the iPhone when it first came out? And how much is this? That is too much money.
Okay, so you think that that's what the impact of this is going to be, is too much money and it's only for developers, and
If you want things, if you really want things to scale and reach as many people as possible, how many people percentage wise in this world can really afford a $3,500 headset?
That's going to go out of it's going to be ready for the next development level in about a year or less.
And then you got to factor in the services, because what's the point of just getting a headset? You're gonna need services. You're gonna need stuff.
So Brent, the way I would contextualize the price is by asking the question, what can I replace if I buy it? And how much do those things cost? And I think it's pretty, for a single individual, you can replace every TV in your house. I have a short throw projector in my living room that itself costs $3,500. Gone. Don't need it anymore. I have another one in the bedroom. Gone. Don't need it anymore. We have I don't know how many Macs in the house, but every Mac that I've got, I don't need it anymore.
Well,
Can
but
I
wait a minute.
tell you?
So
I think you're the typical person here,
Yeah.
Keith.
Yeah, you buy one of everything.
yeah, and then he's probably got a big box where he
There's
sticks the
a couple
stuff
of
in
things to
after
say.
he's finished with it.
The 3,500.
I'm just talking about the starting point to estimate whether
I understand. Go ahead, Michael.
The $3,500 price is the price of the first product in this line. Everybody knows that there's a product roadmap which goes on for lower priced, lighter, more affordable, more usable versions of this.
It's an electric car.
They are establishing a new paradigm. Steve asked a two-part question. which was important like the iPhone. It's not going to be like the iPhone. You're not going to have the ubiquity of the iPhone, but it will still be important. It'll be massively important.
It's
You know,
bigger than the iPhone. It's the
I think
iPhone
I
and
think
the
that
iPad.
Keith mentioned something, I think, early on when he talked about the snippet of the 3D basketball game. Um, you know, if you think about experiences that you can get with this device that replace what you have now, such as the monitor on your desk or your laptop,
Or your phone.
or your big screen TV, that's one thing. But then you come into a realm of new experiences. If you can actually experience a concert as though you're there, if you can experience a sporting event as though you're there, that's a new level of interest that goes beyond just replacing and finding another way to do the things that you do today.
I call that digital seats. I've been talking about digital seats for probably more than 5 years, and no one's ever thought it was realistic. Now I just saw one. That was a digital seat.
Are you saying digital?
Dennis, can you expand on the
Wait, are you saying digital?
Hang on a second. Hang on a second.
No, I just wanted him to say are you saying digital seed or seat? I couldn't understand.
Seat, SEAT.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. I was trying to figure that out.
Dennis, can you expand on the electric car analogy?
Well, very simply, it's an early adopter market. Early adopters pay the high price. That's why Keith bought 3 electric cars now, and I bought -1. And you're absolutely right. They do have roadmaps for making these things better, faster, and cheaper. And the people who buy these things, at least in the future, are going to be the ones that wait for the cheaper. As far as replacing all your equipment, I don't think that's a real good argument, because you're not going to sell that stuff off and recover your purchase price. So those are sunk costs. So the only way to look at it is going forward.
I think it's
And I'm not
interesting
sure
that
that
Apple
I'm
never
not
said the word VR in its presentation. It wasn't about virtual reality. It was about a new experience. And I get the idea that it's an early adopter thing. I don't look at it as a VR tool either. I looked at it as sort of that space right between where we are right now and where that Tom Cruise movie, where he
Minority Report,
Minority Report, and make stuff move around and look at the different screens and then combine them. And I mean, to me, it's about the user experience, not about whether or not it's an AR or a VR device, which I thought was very smart, because very much like what Apple does is, Michael, as you know, they develop a product at the same time they develop a marketing strategy for that product that makes it more understandable as something new and different.
Yeah, I agree with that. They went out of their way to make this look not exotic. So what they showed you was screens and apps that you're familiar with, just floating in space in front of you instead of sitting on your desk on a physical monitor. There are all kinds of things they might have done, things that other people who sell headsets do, which is to show you all of the fantasy worlds you can entertain, and the whiz bang games and visuals. Apple very deliberately made it seem ordinary, made it seem accessible.
But that's the irony. I think you're right. But you know what they didn't make, what they made exotic and what they didn't make ordinary? The price. I mean, I'm sorry. This stuff is great, but it's completely out of the reach, at least right now, of the regular ordinary people. There's no way.
I know, but there's always an adoption curve that starts with pioneers who will take on a new technology without even knowing what it's good for. They just like to have it. They just
It's
like
the
to
same,
have
by the way,
technology.
it's only the same price as a mid-range MacBook Pro.
Look, it
Yeah,
can
but
be
you know what? I
reduced.
bet you they're selling it at a loss.
I want to
It can be
remind you,
reduced through a subscription, the way that Mobile One or whatever it is breaks a new iPhone down to $70 a month, basically.
That's true too.
It's not a lot of money. Tina,
I
what's
want to remind
your
you one
take?
thing about the price.
Can you hang on one second? I just asked Tina a question. What's your take on, are you at all interested in this?
Too expensive. I understand. I mean, I totally agree. It's at this point, I believe it's you know, early adopter, developer level kind of interest at that price level, and that will come down. I was still shocked, though. I'm still pretty shocked about the price. You know, it doesn't, it's an enhancement of something we can already do. And not at the, I mean, obviously not at the level that it's being done, but like we can already see our stuff on something, right? So it's not I mean, it is a replacement, but it's just not it's not completely necessary that you get your hands on it, or else you won't be able to do something. You know what I mean? It's, you can still do what you need to do. You can still be productive. You can still so hey, I think the price needs to come way down. I think it needs to be somewhere at the $1,500 level, $1,800 level at the most. I think I'd still like to see it lower, but then again, we're still dealing with the goggles, and I disagree with Keith when he says, you know, well, it replaces, you know, what you've got in the bedroom and what you've got there. No, it doesn't, because you still have to have this thing on your head.
Until they make a chip that is implantable, and some company, don't laugh, some company just got approval to do that. I just read that somewhere?
Elon.
Okay,
No,
well, you
Elon,
go ahead. I'll be right behind you.
I'm gonna rush right
I'll
up to
take
get
it.
that
Can I
one.
say something about the price?
Yeah.
The Macintosh 128K with a tiny screen, black and white, not even grayscale, no hard drive, was introduced at $24.95.
And what year was that?
Price, in today's value, is the price of 2 Vision Pros. $24.95 in 1984 is equivalent to $7,000 today. So
But the one difference is,
that's how things start and where they go.
yeah, but there's one difference is there wasn't a whole lot to choose from back then. There's a whole hell of a lot to choose from. You can buy, you know, devices. I mean, if you look at each of our rooms, we got multiples of devices.
Well, there was plenty
Especially
to choose
your-
from, and that's why the original Macintosh was a failure. Apple almost went out of business on it. You had the whole PC market to choose from.
I've made mine into a fishbowl.
Look,
The
I
other thing I
think
want to say, I want to agree with what Tina said. You know, nobody is going to be cocooned in a headset from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to
No,
sleep.
the battery is only 2
You're going
hours.
to need other devices. Apple's first strap-on computer was a wristwatch. That's something I put on in the morning and don't take off until night. In fact, I sleep with it. I only take it off to recharge it.
How much did you
Something that
pay for
strap
it?
onto your head is not going to be an all-day affair. Nobody's going to do that.
I'm just
You're
glad
still
to
going to
know
want to
that
look at
Michael has
other
a
kinds of
strap on that he
screens.
wears all day.
Yeah, and didn't
But-
you say that
but-
if you watch a 3-hour movie on it, the battery only lasts for 2?
But just
Well,
think
yeah,
of what Michael just said.
but
Just
there
think about what he just said. You can only, you know, you could wear the watch a long time, but who's going to have this thing on their head more than a couple hours at a time? So it's not a true replacement, because people sit at their computers for like days at a time. So you're going to still need that. It's not a complete replacement.
Well,
You're
look,
gonna-
I think that's correct, but you're not gonna try to do that. What I know what I will do, I will definitely watch sport on it if it's 3D for sure.
Hey, guys, Jack Smith is going to be speaking soon.
Are we getting preempted for Jack Smith?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you. I thought,
we're going full circle. We're going back.
Well,
to
we
the
can
topic.
see it over Steve's shoulder.
Yeah,
why don't we do our-
why don't we do our own running commentary as he?
Yeah, zoom in on it. Let's do goggle box on Jack Smith.
Well, I think we'll just use the actual editorial concept.
Of watching TV?
Well, we talked about the Apple thing now. I think people have a good
Well,
sense.
there's
The best
one thing
article that I've read about the Apple device is, of course, what's that guy's name?
Gruber.
Yeah, John Gruber. Is he talking now?
No,
No.
doesn't look like it.
Okay.
They're
Thanks to
futzing with
everybody who
mics.
showed up, and especially those who didn't. We'll see you again next time. Bye.
That was an abrupt ending.
Boy, wasn't it?
Well, anybody who wants to stick around,
Bye-bye.
I'll see you
Unless
later.
we watch and talk about it at the same time. Look, the one thing I want to say about this is that Apple is cleaning Meta's clock. Somebody said that in the
somebody has to do
the
it.
chat, and he has just absolutely taken what Zuckerberg was trying to do and just blown it out of the park.
What a shame. What a shame.
That's all I have to say. I got nothing else.
Kneecapped. He's been kneecapped.
Apparently Zuckerberg has been doing a lot of internal communications about it.
Has it? Oh, you think?
Uh,
By the way, I'm not as interested.
reminds
in
me
this.
of Ballmer dismissing the iPhone.
Yeah, that was a career-ending move. He's now the owner of a basketball team.
Yeah, he's
Which
such,
is going to be showing us 3D games on the new Apple device.
Cool. I'm in.
By the way, I'm way less interested in this Trump stuff than you guys seem to be. It's like, I don't even really want to watch it.
Oh,
I hear that. I hear that at home every night.
I'd like to watch it on the Apple Vision device.
Yeah.
Can they do
Big,
it 3D?
big,
If we had
big
the
screen.
right up
Big.
at the
Apple
nostril.
goggles, that would be, watching that in 3D. That would be
I
cool.
would watch it if Michael was on there with his strap on. That would make it interesting.
Oh, that's
Yeah, there's the strap on.
Nicole.
Okay.
Yeah, strap-
Now
Nicole
it's
is
really
on.
over.
And on that
God.
note,
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Are you leaving?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all going
Charmaine.
away.
It's still
Our
recording.
own personal carburetor heads.
It's still recording, by the way.
Wow. Thanks for the update.
Bye-bye.
So I'll let you know.
Thanks, Keith.
You're welcome. I'll see you. If I can find my mouse.
You top streaming, please.